Hi, Neil Miller. Welcome to the Empathy Edge podcast. I feel like this has been forever in the making to have you on my podcast after you had me on yours, the digital workplace. Welcome.
Yes, we are true friends because we are pre-COVID friends.
We are. I know. We're still virtual friends. We haven't met in person, but those efforts got thwarted by a little thing called COVID. I was not able to make it out to Indianapolis where you are based. So welcome to the show. You are the director of the digital workplace. We heard all about your bio in the intro. So let's just get right to it because this is a popular topic. I'm sure you are fielding all kinds of questions and inquiries around this. Let's talk about this thing called hybrid work. First of all, can you define it for us and give us your reflections on where you think we are as of this recording on the state of hybrid work and where you see companies go with adopting it as a permanent solution?
So my working definition of hybrid work is what people say when they don't know what the heck they're going to do.
I like it.
They generally say like, well, we know we can't go back fully to 5 days in the office or else people will just revolt and leave. But we're sure as heck not going like full digital here. So we're doing hybrid. And they kind of leave it open as that. A big thing to think about with hybrid is that it's got to be, you have to think about place and time. Most people just think of digital work as a place thing. It's either remote, it's where you work from. But really, if you look at a lot of the stats that are coming out, a lot of the new reports, people care much more about flexibility around when they work, more so than where they work. So that's a key thing. I will say also, when we talk about hybrid, the nature of what work looks like in the office is pretty well understood. We've been doing that for at least 100 years, a little more than that. So we kind of got that down. Pure digital work, pure distributed work, where people aren't working from the same location and across time zones, that is a newer thing, but it's not brand new. We've had sales teams that have been on the road for a long time. We've had satellite offices. And if you look at like teams that are truly like what we call like a modern distributed digital workplace, they would go back to about 12 to 15 years ago. Some of those early companies, Automatic and Basecamp and Zapier, and some of the ones that are leading voices in those places now. It was about that time when they started things, and that's enough time for them to figure out the first few bumps in the road. So they are helping the rest of us figure out things and know how to work stuff. But there have not been very many examples of hybrid work in terms of, if you look at, hey, we're just working from the office 3 days a week, from somewhere else 2 days a week, or on some kind of flexible schedule. Like, there aren't as many best practices around that. So for the companies that are choosing to embrace hybrid work and say, this is what we're doing, it's a lot of guesswork. It's a lot of trying to figure out what's going to happen. And it's going to take some time to figure out. So it's definitely the hardest option of anything out there.
What do you think, what are you finding as a company's biggest worry about it? What's rising to the top in terms of what they're most concerned with? I mean, the companies, I feel like the companies in the industries that have embraced it have moved beyond well, if our people aren't here, are they actually getting work done? And I've heard from some very archaic industries, manufacturing, et cetera, that they have those kind of cultures, which just begs the question, if you don't trust your people, you're not hiring the right people. But, these companies that are embracing hybrid work have already gotten past the trust factor. Am I correct in assuming that? What's their biggest worry now?
Yeah, I would agree with you. The question, will people still get their work done, was a question that was asked in late March of 2020. And by late April 2020, the answer was yes, it's fine.
Right. Things are getting done. So yes. Yeah.
We pretty much figured out the fact that work gets done is not a challenge. The fact that people can be productive at home is not a challenge. It's not ideal for everyone. Some people it's better. Some people it's worse. But on the whole, I think most reports out there report actually a little bit increase in productivity in terms of what you're able to do.
Less interruptions.
Right.
Yeah. So what are folks most concerned about then?
The things I hear the most about, one, people always play the culture card, say, hey, we got to get our culture. We have to get back to where our culture is, which is they keep it in some box in some corner of an office that they've had.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah. So we got to get back to the culture. And then there's definitely this feeling of, man, wasn't it great when we were all together? Wasn't it awesome? Everybody's missing that. Everybody wants that. That's the kind of narrative that I hear a lot, is that we can't really collaborate well unless we're all in the same place. So we can divide those up. Let me take the second one first. I actually have a lot of sympathy for that idea, because I think at this point, 2.5 years past the pandemic, it's true. I was just at a conference last week, got to see people in person I'd only interacted with digitally, and it was amazing. It was great. To be able to have those physical connections.
Well, we're humans and we thrive on community. I mean, that's just like our species, right?
Yeah, we weren't meant
biological.
Like there is a role for digital community. You can do it. You can build culture. You can collaborate well. You can get what you need done. But there's this beautiful thing, just that being together and going out to eat together and having those experiences that are pretty amazing. And if you look at these, what we'll call purely distributed teams, again, the pre-pandemic that we're doing this, like they all got together like at once a quarter, once a year, at least the whole team going somewhere physically together. So it's never been part of the discussion. It's like, if you're doing digital, you never meet together. So recognizing that that's there, but where I see that discussion maturing now is recognizing that, being in person, if it's not the default, if it's just this thing that we get every once in a while, then how do we use that? Like, what's the thing that in person does that nothing else can do?
Right.
And status reports is not the thing.
Right.
And trying to figure out like whose fault this project was that screwed up. That's not the thing you do when you're in person. When you're in person, you use it for the thing it's awesome at, which is eating together and building relationships and chatting about things and going for walks and doing events together. Like that's what we got to start to see. Like there's this hierarchy of collaboration tools that we have, and in person is the most expensive. It's the most time intensive. It's the hardest one to do. It's the most exhausting. And man, it's amazing at some things that just cannot be beat in other ways. And so I'm seeing a lot of maturity in terms of the discussions around that and saying, okay, how do we make the most of in-person time? How do we make the most of other time that we can just do our regular work and chat so that we can have more time for our own lives and families and whatever else is going on in your life too.
Yeah. And it's really interesting because my husband's company, he's head of marketing for a software company, and they have made the bet, they've made the decision to go fully remote. Now they were partially remote before because they have a very distributed team anyway, but they've made the decision to eventually get rid of their office space, but they're looking at solutions of where they can have gathering points. Whether it's a co-working space or whether it's, we have this meeting in this location every month, they're looking at those options within the cities where they have their cohorts of people. So they're finding a way to figure out, when is it, to your point exactly, when is it appropriate and when is it necessary for us to be together? And like you said, it's not for stand-up status report meetings. It's not the best use of the in-person time to actually warrant us needing to rent space for that.
Exactly. And I think that will be mostly the discussion. If you don't already have real estate as a company asset and investment you're probably just going to be renting it from here on out, just as needed, different places. I've heard people say at this conference we were at, it was like, hey, you cannot have a fully distributed strategy without a flexible workplace strategy. Like it's got to be one and the same. You got to figure out. And again, some of it goes back to not everyone works well from home. Both on a personality level and just your home's not set up for it. Maybe it's small. Maybe you got 10 people living in it. Maybe you got all sorts of other things. You got to get out of the house.
My husband's in the bedroom. Like that's his office. And he's like, I have to go into the office once or twice a week because I have to, I will go crazy. So I feel that. So let's get to the other worry, which is culture. And you and I could probably go on for like 2 hours about our rants about how culture is misunderstood by companies. I was mentioning to you before we started recording that this concept of culture being within 4 walls, or that culture is ping pong tables and free beer on Fridays, has been the excuse that a lot of companies have used as to why their productivity fell in the remote work environment, why this happened, retention, all that. And I would submit that they were hiding behind these things, which are really perks. Rebecca Fries, workplace innovator, who's on another episode of the Empathy Edge podcast, calls it fungineering, where you're hiding behind these trappings of what you think culture is. But culture is really just how we treat each other and how we get work done. What are the rules, the ethics, the protocols, the the actions, the behaviors that we take. That's really culture. So tell us if you agree with that, and what you're seeing in terms of how are people who do have a good how are organizations that do have a good culture replicating culture in a hybrid work environment?
Yeah, 100% agree. I think a lot of companies, when they said we had a great culture, they didn't really do much to create that. They just threw people in four walls and it just happened. And people created their own norms. Yeah. Sometimes didn't get lucky and sometimes did get lucky. And occasionally they would pay for beer and that was about it. Like you didn't have to really invest a whole lot into it. And to your point earlier, like that's also just because humans just do it. Like you just throw 10 people on an island, like they'll develop their own culture. Like
right.
Hopefully it's good. But we do it.
Hopefully it's not Lord of the Flies. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the question is like, how can you do this like digitally? And I mean, there's definitely some personality elements. There's some generational elements too. Like people who are younger, like maybe grew up with a digital culture as their primary means of friendship, whether they're a chat group they were part of or some interest group that just really connected with them. And so those people know like, yeah, you can have deep bonds with people that you haven't met and that you do a lot of collaboration with and a connection with, so that we know it's possible. But I think your point is exactly correct, that we shouldn't see culture as just the fun things that we do.
Or even the perks.
Yeah, or even the perks.
Right.
Culture, like you said, is how we work. Like this is how we operate. This is how we do meetings. This is how we do stand-ups. This is how we do everything. Like, and I think that in a digital world, you are forced to deal with that in a much more explicit way than you have to when you're in the office. So it's much more common to see remote teams, distributed teams, to actually create a document that says, this is how we interact with each other. This is what we mean for, these are our collaboration norms. This is when it's okay, you can call me. This is when it's good, okay, you can text me. This is going to be our behavior when we're in meetings. This is how we're going to handle paid time off. Everything is like a little bit more structured. You have to put in a little bit more effort to establish those rules. And companies that do that, some people are like shivering. They're like, oh gosh, no, I don't want like those rules. Don't put those constrictions on me. But when you co-create those as a team, it's not just like the leader says, here's what we're going to do. But when as a team, you come together and decide on your culture, based on what everyone feels. I mean, you're talking about that's a big play for inclusion. That's a big play for equity, for everyone to feel like they had a voice in what was going to be said. You have ways of building these team agreements that are consent-based so that everyone understands what's going on. And I do love it. It's fun to see those teams that are there. I mean, I've been on distributed teams for 7 years now, and it's been, this last year has been the best year ever, because everyone before, a lot of those teams were co-located and I was the only remote person.
Right. You were the odd person out. Yeah.
Yeah. When everyone's like this and I can say, hey, here's how we do it. Like, here's what we're going to have like a 30-minute game time every week. And this is how we're going to interact with each other. It's like, it's fun and it does a lot of good.
Well, and I think there's, like you said, there's an element of equity to that because everyone's on a level playing field. I remember when I was researching the book, when I was researching the Empathy Edge, again, pre-pandemic, one of the great pieces of advice I found for inclusion and empathy was if you were running a meeting where some people are on video, there was a company that actually had all of their meetings on video, even if everyone was a bunch of people were in the same conference room, they all got on Zoom or whatever they were using so that everyone was on a screen. So it didn't feel like some people were in a room and that was their inside joke. And then these other people on the screen were the outliers. Yeah. And I thought that was very mindful and intentional of them to do that.
I love that example. And I think it's not enough. I feel like, I love the spirit behind it because it's like, okay, let's create an equal experience for everyone.
Pre-pandemic.
Sure. Yeah. Pre-pandemic. But it also means like, we also know that there is power to being in the same room together. And so you're intentionally degrading the experience of people in the room.
Yes.
In order to bring everyone down to this lower level. Okay. That's okay. And if that's the only option you have, go with it.
Yeah.
But instead, how can we like increase the level of remote participants so that they have a better feel for what's going on? So that means you need to invest into your conference rooms, into your meeting spaces to create these 360-degree cameras, to create an experience where they do get a sense for what everyone's looking at and where everyone is seated and how they interact and those little micro movements that you can pick up on. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have anything else, yeah, make sure everyone's got their video on. But by this point, 2.5 years into everything, like you should have a better experience that enables everyone to have a great experience instead of bringing everyone down.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So what do you say to the concern of if we give too much workplace flexibility, we're going to lose our culture? Or even if we give too much workplace flexibility, it sort of becomes the Wild West. Is that remedied by co-creating the rules, as you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, it starts off, like you said, with trust, just that people will get their work done and it's not going to be Wild West. And you do have to give people that autonomy to be able to decide kind of when they work best. I think we're discovering that too, that some people just are morning people and they're not going to, if you bring them in the office at 2-3 o'clock, they're not going to do anything, just going to distract other people. Right. Other people work best in the late evening. They get those ideas, and don't bring them into the early morning meetings. And other people are more afternoon folks. They like that jolt of coffee, and then they can get going real strong. Yeah. And we should be able to embrace that and flow with that and ride those waves instead of forcing everyone at the same thing.
Well, it's really funny because over the last few decades, there's been a lot of work in terms of like personality assessment and how do I work best? And so everyone knew they had different working styles, but we never adapted or evolved the workplace to accommodate that. We just sort of like, oh, that's interesting that you're a morning person and I'm an afternoon person. So anyway, our meeting's at 1 right. And, like we didn't really do anything with that information to actually enhance the workplace to take advantage of those differences in work styles. Yep. And, some, what I find is some old school folks, I'm not even going to say, experienced people, because I think it crosses generations. Some old school folks feel like that's too much accommodation. That's too much coddling. And I would submit that if you want the best out of your people, if you want the best productivity and engagement and results, if this is what you need, if this is how you need to adapt, it's not coddling.
Yeah. This is a huge point, Maria, because this is the exact attitude that we see a lot is that, okay, I'm going to give these things, I'm going to be super generous, I'm going to be super benevolent and allow people to work from home 1 day a week. But if they choose it, I'm also going to treat them as if they're a slacker and as if they're, hey, you just don't want to put on pants today. Like, I get it. Fine, whatever. Like, that's just the way kids are, whatever. Yeah. Like, and I will say it's not just older folks. I know people who are younger, I mean, at least in their 40s or so that have these same attitudes.
That's why it's not generational. It's like, it's just an old school mentality.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it, most of it just comes from a bias that says, hey, this worked for me. Like, you want to know how I got to the top? I'll tell you. I was in the office every day. I showed up early. I was at every meeting. I didn't miss a day. Like I volunteered for all the sales calls. I did everything. I schmoozed people and I did all this kind of stuff. And look where I'm at. Like, it worked for me. If you want the same, you got to do the same. And I think there has to be this attitude that says that, they're in cultural anthropology, they say, if you're in a situation where everything around you, your environment has pretty much stayed the same, like you're in an ancient culture where nothing much changes, then the best way to live is to learn the way of your ancestors and to follow what they did and to respect their traditions. You're going to learn a lot of wisdom from that, and your life's going to be great. If you live in an environment where it's constantly changing and the environment is never the same from 1 year or 1 month to another, then your focus is more on what do I need to unlearn from before, because I know for sure that what's coming next is going to be different. So I got to be able to distill that wisdom that comes from the past without taking just the practices and figuring out what I need to shed from previous generations at the workplace into a new place. And I think that's an important thing that a lot of leaders are not ready to give up, is the fact that they say, this works, this is how work's supposed to be, this is how the office is supposed to be. It's like, yeah, it worked for you in that time period. Like it is not going to work in the future, and it's not going to be there.
Well, it's really interesting you say that, because this is why all the studies around empathy as, the number one leadership skill in the 21st century, which I'm thrilled to hear about. When I started writing this book, no one quite understood if it was a business book or a self-help book. And now people get it. But this idea of the reason why, they're actually saying, here's the reason why. Yes, it's it's great to be empathetic with each other because it's more compassionate, and it's, maybe in some circles it's the moral high ground, right? It's we're doing this for each other.
Yeah.
But actually the reason why is because the pace of change is so rapid. It's much more rapid than it ever was before.
For
and
sure.
in order for us to solve the complex problems of our day, we have to collaborate. We can't solve those problems on our own anymore. We can't be a lone wolf tucked away in your office doing these things and mandating these things from on high. Collaboration is essential to solve the complex problems that businesses and organizations face today.
Yep.
And that's what, there's an actual reason why empathy is a superpower now and a super skill for the 21st century. Because if you can't engage and mobilize and understand and harness the energy of a group of people, you're not going to be able to perform.
Yep, definitely. And I think the fact that, I mean, you talked about it earlier, but all this conversation reveals the bias of people in these roles that are pushing for getting back to an in-office centric workplace. Because you and I can both throw studies in front of these people to show, hey, empathetic leaders, here's the margin of return that they get.
Yeah.
Actual financial things that show that when people feel they're cared for and they're listened to, this is how much more productive they are. This is how much more money you're going to make next year if you do this. We can do the same thing with diversity numbers. We can do the same thing with remote working, flexible working options. We can do the same thing with a 4-day work week instead of a 5-day work week. That it actually leads to better financial results in the end. And people that see that still say no because they're like, I don't know, like I don't trust it. Like there's something that you're like, well, what do you trust? Like, are you in this to make money? Are you in this just to throw your weight around? Because like if you just want to create a cool place to work, then this is the option. If you want to make a place where you actually make more money, this is also the option. It's the same thing.
It's the same option.
If you just want to have control and have power, then okay, you do it your way and enjoy it as long as it lasts.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. It's about, this is what got me to success. Therefore, it's all I know, right? And it might be hard for me to change that. But also it's fear. Like you said, it's fear of losing control. It's fear that the rules have changed and I don't understand the new rules. And therefore I'm going to get left behind as a leader because I don't get it. So instead of trying to get it, I'm just going to mandate, I'm going to do control and command and say, no, this is the way it has to be.
Yep.
Because I'm more comfortable in that space.
Yeah. And I mean, I have empathy for those people that, that really recognize the difficulty of doing this, because like when I detail, like we have a new course about digital meetings that's out. Like when I detail what it takes to actually lead a great meeting in the digital age, anyone who led a meeting in 1990 would look at that and be like, what the heck is this? Like, this is not, I'm just going to go in and run the meeting.
Yeah,
like
that's a lot of work.
Like, I'm not going to put in this much work to do it. It's a lot of thinking to do the plan ahead and to put out pre-work and to think about who all is going to be there and to track who's speaking during the thing. Like that's a ton of things to think about. And people are like, I just want to do my job. Like, leave me alone. But it does take more work. And so I know why some people have that fear of change and don't want to do it too.
Completely. And I do have it. Like, I have empathy for those leaders because again, it's like their whole career, they were given one set of rules and they followed those rules. And that was all they knew. And now we're saying, oh, it's all different. Not that it's that sudden. It actually has been a little bit more gradual than that. It's just the pandemic accelerated everything. Right. But so, yeah, I love that because it's about having empathy for those people too, and understanding that they're not trying to be bad people. They're scared. They're stressed. They're a little bit lost in terms of, I don't know if I have the skills to do this. And I don't know what I need to do next. And so they'd rather just fall back on what they know.
Yeah. My absolute favorite client I ever worked with, she, I don't know her actual age, but she was in her 60s. And definitely she told me like, I'm a year away from retirement. This was in 2020. And it was overwhelming to her to feel like everything she had worked for and done, she had built a great team, mostly in office. And she prided herself because her team was 100% women. She had gone overboard to make some accommodations for, working mothers in the late 90s, early 2000s to bring them onto the team. It's stuff that would have been, maybe considered a little bit pioneering during the time, to create those opportunities. But, still a traditional office setup and expected people to be there. And then she's faced with the last, 2 years of her career, and she's almost has a mutiny on her hands because she wants people back in the office.
Yeah.
And so she's worried about her legacy. Like, what's going to happen? Are people going to see me as this old crusty leader? Like, but I don't know any other way. Like, this is the way it's got to be, and this is the way we got to do it. And it was really touching we did a workshop with them, and to get to the point where she looked back to like why she built that team in the first place was to create more opportunities for women, for working mothers, for people who didn't have any other opportunities to get back into the workplace. And she had a big aha moment during that to realize like, oh, this is the same thing. Like, this is the next version of that.
Yes.
To be able to offer these opportunities for people to move away, or to hire somebody from a different place, or to hire somebody who can work on a flexible schedule more so than they were before. And I mean, kudos to her, because she's put in the work, and she's really tried hard. She knows that she's not going to see the end of all this work. She knows that she will be gone before it's all settled and everything's cleared. But she realizes that's got to be the last leg of her journey, is to start to build that bridge and to start to have those conversations. And that is a tough thing. So I just have all the respect for people like that.
Well, and I love that story because it's also indicative of, as a leader, you're scared, you're hesitant, but remembering that that vulnerability of admitting that to your team and helping your team co-create, having your team help you co-create that with you is an option. I think so many of them are trying to figure it out on their own. And that's why they're freaking out, because they don't know what to do. And it's like, tap into the collective, tap into the Gen Zers and the millennials in your workplace, and leverage their perspective, leverage their ideas. Like, you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah. I saw a great post. I mean, right now we're in May of 2022, and there's all, talks of recession coming. There's all talks of like in the tech community, like funding is going to dry up for a while. It's going to be really, really difficult. There's talks of layoffs and different things. And I mean, those are difficult conversations to have with team members, and to try to figure out what happens next. It's even more difficult if you try to do it all on your own and try to figure out, say, okay, we only have this much money left. So therefore I'm just going to decide what happens, versus like going to your team and having that same conversation, like, hey, we got to reduce expenses by this much. Throw me out all the ideas you got, and let's sort through them together.
Right.
And recognize, like, as a leader, you still have responsibility to probably, some of those calls do need to fall on you as a final choice.
You have to make the final decision, but you can gather input, and you can know you're not in it alone.
Yeah. And then everyone else knows when you start to get a little nervous about something, or when discussions are on finance, like we're all feeling the same thing. Like, it's not just you, and we all know.
Totally. And, way back when I did an interview with Paul Marabella, who was the head of Havas, the big North American portion of that. He was the CEO of the North America group, and had several leadership experiences in his life. And he learned through the course of them, and he shared this in the interview, that when he shared his own vulnerability, not completely relinquishing accountability to his team, but just saying, I'm scared too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's figure this out together, was when he became the most successful version of a leader that he wanted to be. And his team began to trust him. They became more engaged. Like, there was nothing but goodness that came out of this sharing of the vulnerability. And again, you're not like crying on the floor in the corner at a town hall meeting with your organization, but being able to say, like, I don't know, but I'm committed that we're going to figure it out. That's the confidence of the leader that you need.
Yeah. And just being willing to share. I mean, I think we have not recognized that the people that work on our teams are like real adults. Like, they handle difficult stuff in their day all the time.
All the time.
They make decisions for other people all the time. They buy houses, they buy cars, they make significant financial transactions. They have really difficult choices to make in their lives. And yet when they come to work, it's like, well, you don't know anything. Like, you're stupid. Like, let
Yeah.
me hold all this information from you, because if you really knew this, then it would overwhelm you. Like,
Yeah.
come on. They're like, these are real adults we're working with.
Totally. Totally. So, what's your final, as we wrap this up, what are some final tips or pieces of advice, maybe a place to start where people that are like, okay, we're going to go hybrid, we're possibly going to go fully remote. What are some of my first steps I should take to make this work successfully?
I think some of the things we've talked about are good just to revisit. One is these team agreements. Just take one topic, take one thing, just about like, hey, if everyone's ticked off because somebody waits an hour to respond, somebody else waits 15 minutes, somebody else takes 24 hours, like, let's just talk about that. Like, what's reasonable? If I send you a text message versus an email versus a phone call, like, is there a hierarchy of that urgency? Just have one of those discussions. Like, you don't have to nail down the exact answers right away, but just hear what people are struggling with, what makes them upset. You can often just start off like, hey, what bugs you about how we're using Slack or Microsoft Teams right now?
Yeah.
And then they'll tell you. And then those are the issues that you can start working on. So I think that's one thing to look at. The other thing is that I see pretty much every company I've interacted with that has tried to be more distributed or more digital in this way has struggled with the calendar issue, in the sense of like, they're playing calendar Tetris every day, trying to figure out how to squeeze all these meetings in. And then they only have a chance to work at the end of the day after they put their kids to bed or after they close off everything else. Like, that's when they do the real work. And that is a significant issue to look at and to realize. It kind of goes back to what we talked before. Like, meetings are great. They do a lot. They don't have to do everything for you. You don't have to rely on them for everything, every type of collaboration you do. So find some other methods that free up your calendar a little bit more.
Absolutely. There's a lot of collaboration tools out there we can be taking advantage of. So I also want to talk about, rules around running meetings, because this dovetails nicely into something that the digital workplace is offering, which if you go to thedigitalworkplace.com/digital-meetings, what can people find there?
They can find what I was obsessing about for like 6 months, which was just like, I felt like digital meetings especially was just this perfect place where everything came together. That's like where the real discussions happened about, can we make this work? Which starts off, does this need to be a meeting? We've all seen that, like, this could have been an email. Yeah, that's one option, but there's like 7, 8, 10 different options of ways you can handle collaboration that don't have to be a meeting. And then once you do decide, yes, a meeting is the best way to use our time and will get us to the best resolution, then how do you have that? How do you facilitate that? How do you make sure it's equitable? How do you make sure that everyone that needs to be there is there, and that they have the right time to speak up? And how do you document things afterwards? And again, it's like all the stuff that goes through. So we did an ebook, like there, it's I think it's like 30, 40 pages, something like that. And then we also have a video guide if you want to go through the material a little bit faster, to just be able to sit and you can do it as a team. It's fun. There's some questions that come up afterwards. So that's cool. And then the third thing that I'm most excited about is that I have this check-in question generator that I've been building for the last year or two, where it's like,
nice.
to start a meeting, it's always nice just to have a fun question, just to get to know each other a little bit. So we have like 120 questions that just randomly will pop up. So it's fun.
Where
just
is
go there.
this? I need this now.
You can actually go to thedigitalworkplace.com/check-in, just all one word, and be there. But it's also on our meetings link. But
awesome.
It's fun. I use it all the time.
Yeah, we definitely need those, because I'm sure you have it in there. There's all kinds of etiquette about like helping people ease into a digital meeting even, and like create that, what do they call it? Like the foyer, like what's the entrance? It's like I heard a speaker who used to be an Imagineer at Disney talk about applying this concept, because that's what all the rides at Disney do, is they create an experience for you before you actually get on the ride or the attraction. And that's how we can run meetings, is create an experience as people are waiting, or as people are entering into a meeting. And of course I have Disney on the brain because we just got back from Disney this weekend. So, Neil, thank you so much for these insights. I think these are going to be super helpful for so many leaders and organizations struggling with this right now. We'll have all your links in the show notes, including the link to the digital meeting guide and video series. But real quickly, where can folks, for folks on the go or working out right now, where can they find out more information about your work?
Yeah, I mean, it's all pretty much there, thedigitalworkplace.com. I'm most active on LinkedIn, Neil Miller out of Indianapolis. So if you want to try to find me there, that's the best place to get in touch with me.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Maria. It was a lot of fun.
And thank you everyone for listening to another great episode of the Empathy Edge podcast. If you like it, please share it and refer it to colleagues, friends, neighbors, strangers. Don't forget to rate and review if you get an opportunity. And until next time, please remember that cash flow, creativity, and compassion are not mutually exclusive. Take care and be kind.